welcome Lens on the World. I'm host of Xinyu Zhang. I have a great guest today as the book author, the lead author also, Zhang Knights. As the book is Leading Beyond the Ego. Could you tell us more about yourself? I know you come a long way from UK this time. Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So yeah, I'm British and I come from the UK. Fortunately, I've lived in a number of countries around the world during my life, including Sweden, Holland, Singapore, and the United States. And I also spent quite a bit of time in China, starting in 1978, which was a long time ago for most people.
How many trips to China in your
Altogether,
so far now?
maybe 10. But to be quite honest, I haven't been there now since about 2002, because since then the mission has been to develop this leadership journey for leaders for the 21st century.
So what brings you to the leadership Genie? I mean, the book, this seems very powerful.
Yeah, well, I think that, I spent 30 years as a leader. The first 20 or so was as a corporate leader working for a big American company and then a large UK company. And then I became an entrepreneur for quite a while, starting up a number of companies. So I had a lot of leadership experience, so-called. But then due to serendipity, I got the opportunity to learn to coach when I was asked if I would be interested in helping a group of other chief executives in their personal development. And it was really only then that I started to see a mirror of them in me and me in them. And what I realized was that for the last 30 years, although I'd been a leader and had some success, I hadn't really thought about leadership. You get on with a day job, you have the things to do, you have people to deal with, and so on and so forth. But had I dealt about how can I be a better leader? No. And when I was working with these other leaders, we had a certain format where they would come with an issue and I would facilitate them helping each other to find a solution. And what we found was very quickly that all the issues were about people, virtually. And they were very good at finding a solution. But after a while, it was quite obvious that this was symptoms, that we were helping people solve problems, but that we weren't getting to the cause. And so that was when I really started to become interested that if we could find what the cause was for why people were having these issues, then maybe we could help them to be better leaders as well. And so that was the beginning of me starting on this, developing this journey with other colleagues.
So you mentioned to the leaders, I wondered what are the definitions for leaders? For example, like Donald Trump, president, or Barack Obama. What kind of what is the definition? What is the qualification for a leader?
Well, that's very, very interesting. I mean, most people are considered leaders because of their role, because of their title. So you automatically think if you're the President of the United States, you're going to be a leader, right? You're going to be a good leader. The reality is that all it demonstrates is that they were good at getting to be the top leader. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to be good when they get there. And so it is not just with American presidents, but with any kind of leader. That because of the way we tend to choose leaders, we get leaders who are very good at getting to the top, but very often they're not good at the top. And so what should a leader be? Well, the first thing is that they have to generate followers. And how do you generate followers? You don't generate followers, real followers, followers of the heart, by just telling people what to do. You have to encourage them, involve them, engage them, etc. And so leadership is very much about how you manage your own emotions and how you understand other people's emotions, and it's about caring and love. It's not just about telling people what to do.
So tell us more about your book. What the content most in your book? The book is why you choose this in the name.
Yeah. So leading beyond the ego I think is the sort of the new horizon for leaders that we haven't really thought too much about in the past. So over the last 20 years, there's been a lot of work done on emotional intelligence and how to manage your emotions. So the first part of the book provides that foundation, is how do we increase our awareness of what's going on around us, of our own senses, of our emotions, and how do we learn to manage them. And then once we've done that as leaders, how do we use different styles in different circumstances? Because our Stone Age default is basically one of survival, crisis. And so our default leadership style is often in order to respond to that, which is commanding, and which is, telling people what to do. And that, and if anybody thinks about when they're stressed, what do? That's what they just want to tell people, and they want to know everything, because everything else is just too difficult at that moment in time. And that is the tendency of how we are, but it doesn't work, because if I tell you what to do, you're going to resist it. You don't want to be told what to do. You want to make up your own mind. And also in the 21st century, because information is so widely available, knowledge is not power anymore. And that was how hierarchical leaders could command their power, was because they had the knowledge. That isn't true anymore. You can get the knowledge anywhere. So so that's the first part of the book. And then once you've got these learned these different leadership styles, which are quite difficult for most people. Most of us have one or two leadership styles that we're quite competent in, but it's about how do we learn those other four? And it's about learning specific, detailed, granular behaviors in order to do that. And then once we've got those leadership styles, it's about how do we use those leadership styles to create the culture in the organization that's going to be the most productive, the most performance enhancing. So that's the first part of the book. And there's been a lot of work done on that, but I hope that in our book, Leading Beyond the Ego, we've taken that to another level. So the second part of the book is how we sort of complete this journey of transpersonal leadership. And a transpersonal leader is somebody that is, at the end of the day, they're radical, they're ethical, they're authentic, but they're also caring and emotionally aware and think about sustainability. So, it's a big ask. There's a lot of things to become a transpersonal leader. So the second part of the journey, which is what we call the advanced part, is about how we bring our values to full consciousness, so that we don't leave them at the door of the office when we come in, but we actually use them, and we make benefit of the fact that we've got good core values. And most people do have core values, but often they're left subconscious or unconscious. We don't use them. So it's about first of all bringing values to full consciousness. And then once we've done that, then we can start to address our ego. How do we manage our ego? Because basically our ego, which is not an immoral thing, but it's something that is wanting us to do the best for ourselves. Which is fine in certain circumstances, but we often get that confused, particularly if we're an organizational leader. We are paid by that organization. So it would be reasonable that we make decisions that's for the benefit of that organization. So sometimes that's going to be in conflict with our own benefit, and sometimes it's going to be aligned. And what is really important is that we're aware of that when we make a decision, we can actually ask the question, am I making this decision for my own personal benefit, or for the organization, or the stakeholders of the organization? And so there's also the thing about the ego of the organization. Who's the most important stakeholder in your organization? Is it the shareholders? Or is it the customers? Or is it the employees? Or maybe it's the planet? And sometimes, depending on what decision you make, it'll be different. Different stakeholders that are most important. And so one has to be aware of that if you're going to be a really good leader making the benefit for the organization. And then, beyond that, it's about how, and finally, sort of how you get the best decisions, how you make the best decisions, how you improve your judgment, because we're all full of biases and prejudices. We've got to be aware of those, and so we've got to use a range of a range of decision-making processes, our insights, or because of our ethical philosophy. And we use the rational intelligence to justify those decisions.
Wow.
And that's really important, that we are aware of those processes going on in our brain.
So this is a practice, like an exercise, will help, right?
Lots of practice. Becoming a great leader is no different than learning to drive a car. You know, you have to practice. When you first start to drive a car, you know, you've got all those buttons and levers and things, and it's all complicated. But after a few months, it's all automatic. And that's basically the way that our brain rewires. And what's important is that we proactively rewire our brain ourselves to manage our personality, rather than letting
just let
chance just happen.
Okay.
Yeah?
Oh wow. So I have another question. It's like if become like a superhero or good leader, should be definitely they will be successful in some career or in some field?
I think if you follow the values and the emotional management, that will really help anybody to be a good leader. But don't use the word hero, because hero is ego.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I cannot use a superhero
No,
also.
a superhero is ego.
Okay.
So, and often the best leaders are the quiet people who make the other people look good.
Kind
Not
of,
yourself look good, make
it's-
other people look good.
I mean, it's be very beneficial for communities,
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
the universal, help other people.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
probably best. Full consciousness. That's great.
Full
good.
consciousness.
Oh, thank you for joining us. Really great. Have
Thank you.
great conversation.
Thank
I
you very
hope
much.
a lot of people
And
buy your book.
I'll just hold this up then.
Yeah, hold
Leading
it up.
Beyond the Ego.
Okay, that's the
Thank
lead
you.
author, John Knights,
Thank you.
right? Thank you so much. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.